Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture. Joined by Mark. It came from the radio. Torres. You guys are still rocking. It came from the radio, right?
Yes, we are. Every single week we have a new episode. In Westchester County, if you live in that area, it's a WW. It's 88.1 FM WARY in Westchester County, but we're also on www.camefromradio.com. New show every week. We are on over 40 different podcast places, such as Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, whatever else is out there. If you look for it, you can find us. And we're also on 3 online radio stations. That's Wednesdays at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. on sci-fi.radio, Eastern Standard Time. Thursdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on btd.radio. And on Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Indie Bolt Radio.
Very, very cool.
Well done.
Yeah, let us know. Well, Westchester's Westchester's actually the absolute center point for Hassan and I. We both, because I'm in Rockland, he's in Bronx, so it's like that is a convergence. That is a convergence. So that's my unbashful way of saying get us on the show. We'll come out.
It's actually, I don't even go up there. I just send them a file. I record it, send them a file.
Technology, ain't it great? All right. This segment is called All Around the Rogue, where we dive into the headlines of the week. So we're actually we're at this calm before the storm that is She-Hulk, though there are some reviews that are out, and I've seen one or two headlines that are positive so far. So I don't know. I know I saw another headline that it had a She-Hulk has its first Rotten Tomatoes score, but definitely a lot of articles with the cast of She-Hulk because they're doing their promotional tour, so it makes total sense. And one of those things that came out though is Mark Ruffalo talking about the difference between the Marvel universe and the Star Wars universe in terms of creativity and what the creatives are actually allowed to do. So he actually says that they are that they're similar, but there's the difference with Marvel here, and I'll get the exact quote is, it's not something I worry about. I understand these things run their course and then something else comes along. But the thing Marvel has done well is that inside the MCU, just as they do with the comic books, they let a director or an actor sort of recreate each piece to their own style, their likeness. Marvel generally lets them bring that to the material. If you watch Star Wars, you're pretty much going to get the same version of Star Wars each time. It might have a little bit of humor. It might have a little bit of a different animation, but you're always really in that same kind of world. With Marvel, you can have a whole different feeling, even within the same universe. Now, I got this story from Heroic Hollywood where the writer then disagreed. He said Mark Ruffalo is entitled to his opinion on the Star Wars franchise, but to say that it offers less of a variety of stories is a bit off base. While the franchise, particularly the Skywalker saga, is known to make callbacks, films such as Rogue One, Solo, and even the polarizing Last Jedi have showcased different styles that fit within the universe George Lucas created. Also, new series such as The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, and Obi-Wan are an exploration of different parts of the galaxy. They go beyond just a bunch of space wizards fighting with laser swords. Meanwhile, one can easily criticize the MCU for much of their projects feeling quite formulaic. Mark, Hassan, do you have any comments, a reaction to anything?
I think the article writer was an idiot for including The Last Jedi if he's trying to make an argument. And I'm not even saying that The Last Jedi was bad, and so he shouldn't have, that I think he's an idiot for including it. I'm saying if that's one of the most polarizing movies in the last 20 years. And so it's probably not something I would throw into the equation when I'm trying to defend a point that I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
Even The Last Jedi was variety. It's and people are like, yeah, and that's the variety we don't want. That's an easy. There's an easy rebuttal to that. So the last thing you want to do in a debate is give your opponent an easy rebuttal. I see where Mark Ruffalo is coming from. But he's not taking into account the fandom for Star Wars, because every time they try to do something different, the fandom pretty much wrecks the entire the entire car, and and everybody walk home. So it's not it's not really a genre that is, or a franchise, I guess, uh, that is conducive to a lot of change, to a lot of variety. You know, I mean, there's things, if you have to be very clever to put variety into that. So I mean, like, I'm almost agreeing with Mark Ruffalo,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not. You know, that I don't think that limits it. I just think that it has a finer line to walk than the MCU. Also, the MCU has the benefit of like something like 50 years worth of story,
Yeah.
and hundreds of titles, you know, of characters all bound together in the same universe. So they don't even have to work really hard to tie Guardians of the Galaxy together with the Avengers. You know,
Right.
they really don't have to work hard because the foundation, the comic books, have already done that for them. So Star Wars has a little more leg work to do in order to kind of branch out. And look, the fans haven't been responsive to a lot of their attempts at branching out.
Yeah.
You could say that turning Boba Fett into a quote unquote good guy was an attempt to branch out, and look how everyone reacted to that. So I mean, it's tougher for Star Wars, I would say.
Mark, what do you think? Does Mark a tale of two Marks here? Are you siding with a fellow Mark here?
Us Mark with the K's should stick together usually, but in this situation, I'm like, yeah, I kind of sort of see what he's saying, because if you think about it, Star Wars is Star Wars. Like, you come up to anybody who asks about Star Wars, they're going to say what Star Wars is. It's a certain type of science fiction property. If you look at Lego Star Wars, that's a type of humor property, and they can do more stuff because already you have Lego on top of it. So it's the Lego brand over the Star Wars, telling a Star Wars story. Marvel is not a universe. Marvel is a company that makes a whole bunch of stuff: westerns, horror, sci-fi, drama, comedy. They do all that already. So it's like if you go to the library, like, I want to see, you know, there's the horror section, where's the comedy section, you got that. But if you go to the library, I want Star Wars, you go to the Star Wars section.
That's right.
Kind of where it is. So they can try to branch out if they really want to, but that means kind of reinventing the wheel of what Star Wars means and is, quote unquote, is to the average viewer or listener.
I mean, in a way,
and
Star Wars.
I might add, Mark defended his point without bringing up The Last Jedi. That's how it's done. I'm sorry.
Here's the thing. In a way, Star Wars can be Marvel in that sense, right? But it does have to always adhere to the universe that it creates, right? I mean, but that's what Marvel does too. I mean, Marvel creates a universe that it's basically our Earth, but they're superheroes. DC, you know, obviously same kind of setup. Star Wars is, look, there's planets, there's there's the Empire. Well, if it's set in that time period, there's Jedi. There's certain rules to the universe. But they could also do that. But to Hassan's point, the fans don't let them. The fans don't want them to, and don't let them. And in that sense, there really are two distinct things. Now, I will actually defend his use of The Last Jedi, because I think what Mark Ruffalo was also saying, why he brought The Last Jedi was.
Before you do that, it wasn't Mark Ruffalo who said Last Jedi. It was a
no. I agree. No, I know.
It was a person
the
rebutting
article writer.
Yeah. Okay.
The Last Jedi stylistically is Rian Johnson. It is stylistically looks and feels different. So I think what Mark Ruffalo was saying, that, Marvel lets the director or the writer come in and be their own thing, I think that's really a matter of opinion more than a fact, because you could literally watch all the Marvel movies and think they're all the same too. I think from a stylistic, not a genre point of view, but I mean, generally they all do kind of have to fit, a certain look, a certain feel, and a certain formula. So in that sense, I think that's the reason he brought The Last Jedi up, is that, much to my chagrin, and I know, Hassan, your chagrin, because we did a whole episode on it, they let Rian Johnson do things that we would never, want to have happen in a Star Wars film.
I have no opinion on The Last Jedi at all.
What's that?
I have no opinion on The Last Jedi at all.
Well, that's not if they go back to our Secrets of the Sire podcast. Then then they can dig that
But
up.
those, those don't exist. Those are gone. So
Hassan was the Star Wars.
Well,
guy.
that's still out there. I'm still making 0.00003 cents off of every podcast that's there. Eventually, I will.
But I mean, that proves the point, though, doesn't it? Because The
Right.
Last Jedi was completely polarizing and,
Yes.
and freaked everybody out, and that was quote unquote a different kind of Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
So that kind of proves the point of the fans. The fans don't like change.
Yeah.
Especially if it's bad change, like The Last Jedi. But I don't have an opinion about it though.
So let's take two unfinished projects. Think of the Solo movie that was supposed to be by the Lego guys, and you've heard all the stories about how it's supposed to be more of a wacky comedy. So that was going to be very off track, and they just shot that down. Like, no, we don't want that. And then you go to Marvel End, which is the Ant-Man, which is Edgar.
Edgar Wright, yeah.
Edgar Wright.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be Edgar Wright, but it's
Right.
Once again, it was supposed to be because they wanted to try something very different, very off key, and they're like, no. So it's they do kind of have that production system where like, no, we want to keep it this way.
I would say there's more similarities to Marvel and Star Wars, the MCU and Star Wars, than there are differences.
Yeah.
You know, as opposed to the volume. I think the MCU has way more volume, and therefore they have way more success stories. Although Star Wars only has one non-success story, which is Solo. Basically, everything Star Wars has put out has been a success, either ratings or, made $1 billion at the box office. But Marvel has greater volume, I would say. But they're both bound by the same rules. You have to do consistent work in order to facilitate to keep their genre going. I think Star Wars is just more rigid because it's basically space. Like, how do you do something other than space? How do you do something? Like, you can't do Star Wars on a planet. You can't just stay on Tatooine, even though they try. You can't stay on Tatooine for 6 episodes and not go into outer space. You can't go to, whatever other weird planets that they have. You can't go to Dagobah. You can't do a show about the swamp, and not go into space once or twice. They are kind of bound by that aspect of the genre. And the name, they're Star Wars. You got to have a war in space. It's not going to work.
You got to have some Star Waring.
Someone has.
Well, no, that's totally different then. If you don't have, you have just like people knitting,
Yeah, it's not going to work. I don't think people are going to be. This is bold. This is a bold.
It's a bold direction.
Yeah.
You can have a Marvel movie like Paranormal Activity with superheroes. You can do that.
Yeah.
You can't do a Star Wars movie like Paranormal Activity.
You could. I bet you could.
Well, let me rephrase that. You can, but there'll be murder on the streets and blood will run rampant. And you can make a movie however you want to make a movie, but will it make money? That's a whole different thing.
And I mean, the Batman just demonstrated you can do you could basically do a superhero horror movie, because that's that the Batman is kind of inspired by Seven. Like, that's more likened to Seven than it is, say, like the Justice League.
Sure. So
you can do a kind of horror mystery gritty cop drama with Batman, and they kind of did the same thing with the Joker, where they put it, they made it more of a gritty story about mental illness and cops chasing him around the city than they did about him being a criminal mastermind trying to make everybody green, which is basically what the comic book Joker does. So I mean, you can alter the comic book or the superhero genre to suit your needs if you're very clever about it. It's really hard to alter Star Wars to fit another genre. Star Wars is a genre in and of itself.
To piggyback off this, I just brought up an article too. Damon Lindelof recently.
Oh God.
Talked to the this is off Variety. He talked to the Intuit podcast to discuss his preference.
To you guys?
What's that?
Why isn't he talking to you?
Because he's not smart. He doesn't know. He doesn't know.
Well, now we can't get him. We almost. I was just about to announce him on the show next week.
He's listening right now, and now he's upset.
Yeah, now he's mad. He's mad because he
Good
checks
work,
us out every week.
Hassan.
Yeah.
Way to go. We almost got
I'm
down
saying he's
Rgoue
not
Wav.
smart. He doesn't know where the action's at. That's where the action's at.
That's
So he would have been with us if he had half a brain. But go
So
ahead.
he was talking about his preference for endings, which he said is the opposite mentality of the never-ending Marvel Cinematic Universe. Lindelof shared his belief the sheer number of Marvel movies actually works against the brand because it ends up making each entry feel less special. "Quote unquote, it's always going to be hard because once you've got someone's attention, you want to keep it. And so the idea of letting it go and not knowing if you're ever going to get it back again is sort of like it's antithetical to the way that we're wired." He said about the, ending a film and TV series. From a slightly more cynical standpoint, this is a business, it's an industry. And if you make a couple of great Marvel movies, the instinct is we need to make more and we need to expand this. And I had this sort of interior feeling of like, wow, I wish they'd made less because it would make each one that came out a little bit more special. But I watch all of them. People don't want things to end. I do. I think that's an interesting
He wants things
statement.
to end.
Well, I know.
I want things to end.
I know.
Like a letter.
I'm going to put an end to all these genres myself.
That's how he became a criminal mastermind.
Yeah.
Because he wants things to end.
He wants
And
things to end.
he's going out to stop the Star Wars and Marvel movies from churning out things like butter.
Well, that's the thing, though. This is what makes the statement interesting in comparison to what Mark Ruffalo is saying too. I think that Mark Ruffalo's statement is accurate to an extent, except Hassan, I think you even brought it up. It all feels the same. I think there's something to be said about the oversaturation. Look, we're all not dumb and we're all not naive. We know that this is a business, and there is in no way, shape, or form we are not going to get a bazillion. Disney didn't buy Star Wars for $4 billion, which, by the way, now seems like a steal. Compared to how much money, just what 2 movies made for them. They got the return on investment, but they're going to make more because they want to make more money. So I'm not naive to think that, that they're ever going to make less of something. However, I do think lately there's an argument that can be made, and I agree, that I am not as excited for the next, this is phase 4 of Marvel. There's a lot of stuff coming out, and there's a lot of stuff coming out that's not Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Tom Holland. We did have at least Chris Hemsworth Thor, which again has the worst Rotten Tomatoes score for any of the Thor films at this point, or no, sorry, any of the Phase 4 films, not the Thor films, but the Phase 4 films.
Yeah, but it made it's not on par. So
yeah, no, exactly, right.
Depends on what metric you want to measure everything by.
But from a creative standpoint and from a consumer standpoint, yeah, I mean it's there is a point of saturation to the point where you might sit there and say, you know what, this just isn't giving me the same feeling that it used to, and for me, I've reached that point personally a lot quicker when it came to Star Wars, just because I love the original trilogy films. I can tolerate the prequel films. I can tolerate, some of the sequel films. I actually did enjoy Solo, as we talked about. I liked Rogue One, but there is a saturation point to where you're like, all right. I mean, that is the problem with give us what we want, which is more. Right? At the end of the day, sometimes more is not better.
Yeah. Hassan, let's go back, Hassan. Me and you, we're gonna go back. If you remember. When we used to discuss the Marvel movies way back when it first was in its infancy, you said on our show, every single thing is set up for the next thing. There's no ending to any of these movies. It's just, this is set up for the next one. This is set up for the next one. I don't like that. Do you remember that conversation?
I remember.
It's amazing. Remember you. I bring up stuff. He's like, I didn't say that. And I'm like, I'm literally listening to it right now.
He remembered that's how it was back then. So that was
the only thing I remember that I definitely prophetically said was, as soon as we get more Star Wars movies, that's going to change the way everybody feels about the prequels, and then everyone's going to hate the sequels.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I said because I knew
said that too.
Yeah, and the only reason I said that's not because of the quality of the movies, because that is it's all up for debate, that's all up for grabs, but by the irrational dislike that people have for new things in their genre, that as soon as you give them something new, because when I was coming up, everybody hated Return of the Jedi. That was the worst movie ever. Mm-hmm. That was the worst. The whole trilogy was ruined because of Return of the Jedi. The prequels came out, and now suddenly all 3 of the original trilogy were sacrosanct. You know, they were holy. I'm like, well, what happened to Return of the Jedi? I thought everybody hated that. No, Return of the Jedi is a work of art. It completes the story. So as soon as the new movies, the sequels, come out, the prequels get a new a renaissance of their own. So that's the way it's done. But here's what I think the problem is. And I touched on this recently. Generation X doesn't let go. If you, as you say, Michael, decide that, I'm not, I'm looking at phase, 5 and 6, and I'm not excited by it, might mean that the genre has passed you by. That you're just no longer interested in the genre anymore, right? Because you had your phase, you had your point of interest. The point of interest has passed, so now you're not interested anymore. But Generation X interprets that as, oh, it's failing. Now it's failing because it's failed to keep my interest. But these studios aren't interested in people in our age demographic anymore. They're not making movies and TV shows and stuff for us. They're trying to snag the next generation of moviegoers. And we are just not, when I say we, I mean the royal we. I'm not talking about the 3 of us. We are just like too arrogant to let go and will not accept that these things are not made specifically designed to entertain us specifically. And so, I think that's where the problem is. I think that's where the toxic fandom stuff comes from.
You're not wrong in the sense that, yes, but I at least, and I'm just speaking for myself here, I'm able to discern whether or not it's like, well, this was really good, it just didn't do anything for me, versus this didn't do anything for me and it really wasn't very good,
Because
or
it's the entitlement factor that we've have seen grow over the course of the years, of how people are like, well, this is my property, this is my thing.
See that, but
this is my Star Wars, this is my thing. How dare you change it? How dare you do it for this? And if you don't like it, you're a jerk.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And you got people arguing about who's going to be the next Indiana Jones, because we're going to keep everybody's franchise oriented. We want to keep making these things, but these actors are getting too old to keep making them.
Oh God,
it's like, oh, we're just going to recast everything. When these people die off, we're going to but now they're not even waiting for people to die. It's like, oh, Harrison Ford's really old.
The character dies with him. He's gone on record.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he's got any control over that.
The funny thing is when he dies, then the studio will be like, well, I mean, look, we're gonna have to do it.
Yeah, this is too bad, but the people want more Indiana Jones. Wink, wink, wink. $1 billion. We need another $1 billion.
I would like more Indiana Jones, but I would also like it to be better than Kingdom of Crystal Skull. But that's what Kingdom of Crystal Skull is a great example of.
Quentin Tarantino thinks that's the better, one of the best Indiana Jones movies. So, like, again, mileage varies. He just put that out. Huh?
I'll fact check you on that one. No, it had potential.
No, I said Quentin Tarantino thinks that's the best. That's his favorite Indiana Jones movie. You don't have to fact check that. That's what he said.
Did he? Did he really?
I'm
gonna goggle that. That's my new search. Yeah, that's my new search browser. I don't trust Google, so I have to go to Goggle.
Well, when you have Quentin Tarantino on the show, you can ask him in person.
Yeah,
there you see. Mark's
right now, and he wants to.
He's got the right gist of it. Mark, you're hired. Here's the thing. But here's the thing. Like, I can look at Crystal Skull.
I could take a vacation.
I can look at Crystal Skull and sit there and say, to me, this just didn't do it for me. Not because it didn't ruin my childhood. It didn't ruin Indiana Jones. I didn't like seeing an older Indiana Jones regardless, just because it makes me sad. But that's my own personal issue with seeing, heroes I grew up with aging. That has nothing to do with the film itself, right? But I could sit there and say, the mystery itself, the actual quest itself, didn't hold up to previous quests, and I think that would have actually made for a better film. But I'm not going to sit there and say I don't want to see more because this particular film didn't do well. But I'm also not going to attack the whole thing and be like, wow, I don't know what they're doing and this and that. No, look, they just didn't make as good a film. And I mean, in my opinion, it's just not as good as what the original ones were. But at the same time, I can discern, in my own head, like, okay, He just didn't make a good film, but it wasn't
Thank
as
you,
if.
Aaron.
You got
What's
a fact
that?
check. You got a fact check right there.
Aaron just posted the link.
Controversial take. Look at him. When was this? Oh, it was 2 days ago. Oh, no wonder. All right. Interesting.
Well, I
But Tom didn't say when it was.
I
He
didn't
just
say it was
said
20 years
existed.
ago.
No, he said Temple of Doom is his favorite.
He said Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was better than Last Crusade. That's what he said.
That Crystal Skull is better than Last Crusade. Yeah, that's a tough one.
No,
He
it's
said
not.
Temple of Doom is his favorite film
Not
in the
for
series,
him.
though.
Yeah, that's my favorite. Even
I
though
liked him. I was a big Temple of Doom fan.
I think the best one is Raiders of the Lost Ark, but my favorite one is Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And it's, you know what? I won't say that here. Never mind. But because I just saw all of them recently, and I got takes. But yeah, I mean, look, I acknowledge that Temple of Doom is not the best one. It's just my favorite one. There's a difference between that. But again, you're using Kingdom of the Crystal Skull as an example of it's kind of a false equivalence of what I'm talking about, because I'm saying like new Star Wars movies like Boba Fett or the sequels. The reason why I don't really torch the sequels every time they come up, or I attempt not to, is because those movies, I have decided those movies were not made for me. My time with the genre has come and gone. It is not inspiring anymore. It is not doing anything for me anymore. And instead of me saying that the genre in and of itself is bankrupt, which is what a lot of people are claiming, it's just that I am older. I've aged out of the genre.
Out.
No, but couldn't you just look at it and just say that weren't good movies? You're allowed to do that.
Because what is good and what is bad is subjective. So I mean, I'm accepting the possibility that if they might be fine, it might be me, and that's what our generation
not you.
Can't
it's
do.
Not.
They're
not good.
Though that's the thing.
No, he's not going to listen.
Everything is because of what everybody agrees it to be. If everybody agreed it to be something else, then it would be something else.
That's very deep.
Yeah, I didn't know what to make of it, actually.
That's very moving.
I was back in the I was analyzing my own words as if I was high, and I was just trying to figure out.
I never got high. It doesn't sound like a lot of fun.
So, I was saying earlier in the first segment, I only a few times, because I never liked getting high, because I would smile and giggle a lot, and I fold into myself, like it's almost like the world kind of pushes out and I recede back. It's very, very. Yes, I did mention Aaron. I mentioned 3 times. Yes, I am. Well, maybe I'd be better if I was high.
Kind of unprompted too.
I know. So I like giving insight into my college years, because it was a lot of fun, but not getting high. Just didn't go for it. Hi guys, Mike Dolce here from the Rgoue Wav podcast. If you like this video, please feel free to like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. It really helps us out. Leave a comment, let us know what you'd like to see in future episodes, and tune in every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, for a brand new episode of the Rgoue Wav podcast.